thank you everyone for coming along to this. This is the first one of our events since we stopped the COVID back in, well, it was exactly 12 months ago that we did our last in-person event. So it's nice to see some new faces and some old faces. Mike and Bilal, I think you've been to pretty much everyone. And this is event number 23, by the way. So I think we did have 12 or 13 in person over in Surrey Hills, and then a bunch last year, which were virtual. As I was explaining earlier to some of you, the virtual events started off very strong, but I think everyone has got webinar fatigue, and we decided to knock it on the head, let the world get back to normal, and then start these events. So this is the first, hopefully, of many to come. And we're going to scale them down to about this size from now on. So they're going to be about 10 to 15, maybe 20 at a push, just so that we stay within the COVID regulations and we don't have to get approvals and things like that. And also, I think it's just a bit more personal. People can have a bit more of a conversation. So I think the round table conversation we had a moment ago is just a really good example of things that weren't happening at the previous events because there were just too many people. So, without any further noise from my mouth, I hand it over to you, Lyndon. Lyndon has put together a presentation for us today about supporting content. As you see, he's from Vodafone. I've had a quick look through the deck already, and I can tell you it's a good presentation, great content. So, thank you for agreeing to do this, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Paul, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think we're all very excited that we can actually get out of the house now. We can all start to actually see people face to face, and we can obviously build our relationships together. It's a pleasure to be here, and I feel honoured that you've been asked me as your first person back in person. So I see this very much as a conversation. It's like, do not be afraid to jump in and ask any questions as we go through. Because it shouldn't just be me standing up here and presenting. So feel free to jump in at any time, ask any question that comes to mind, and I'll see what I can do to answer it. So as Paul says, yes, I'm from Vodafone. I've been at Vodafone for 6 years now. So I started back in 2015. It's a very different company then. I think we all remember the Vodafone fail period from like 2012. That's where the company then went, actually, we have a problem. The problem is our network, because that's the product that we sell. So the company spent 3 years fixing the problem, the network, and they invested billions of dollars into the network, and obviously continue to invest billions of dollars year on year, because that is the product that Vodafone sells. 2015 came around and their business went, actually, we fixed the problem, now we need to win back customers. So they went on this recruitment drive, and then I was brought in as a copywriter at that time. To start optimizing their digital content so that we can start winning back customers and building the business back up. When I walked into the company in 2015, I said to management, I said, you can use content strategically to do two things. You can use content to drive organic traffic from Google, and then once your traffic hits the website, you can use content strategically to drive a conversion. I see people nodding because it seems like I'm preaching to the converted. The business went, oh, that's an interesting concept. Because again, you've got to remember, coming out of the fail period, they had done no optimization. It was just like, let's fix the problem, let's fix the network. Now we need to optimize. Over the next year or so, I then proposed another interesting solution to the organization. I said, well, yes, you've employed me to look after digital content, but why don't you also let me take on SEO? Because at that time, there was no SEO manager. No one was actively looking after SEO. And I said, well, would you like me to take it on? For the organization's perspective, it was zero risk. Like, I was there already. Like, why not just go, oh, look, let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens. 6 years later, I'm still in the position and built up my own team. But what that meant was that Vodafone took that slightly different than a lot of other companies where you have standalone content, standalone SEO, and you actually have the same person looking after both. And then my team then are then responsible for creating the content and ensuring that the content is optimized for SEO. What that meant was that, and the vision I sold into the organization was that you can have all the technical optimization you can possibly do on a website, but unless your content is optimized, it doesn't mean anything. So by keeping it together in one person within one team, it means that we can push through change much faster and much quicker to deliver results much more seamlessly. So that's what we did at Vodafone. That's a bit of background about me and what we've done at Vodafone. Let's now delve into the topic for today, and that's around support. So I pressed the space bar and did something happen? Is it Apple?
So just call IT.
I just called the help desk. Okay, there we go. Perfect. It just sort of froze. All right. So I essentially look after all digital content at Vodafone. And that includes what I call the acquisition section. So the Vodafone website is an e-commerce platform. We are there to drive online sales, whether that be a new customer signing up to the Vodafone service for the first time, or an existing customer wanting to add new services or upgrade their current service, e-commerce platform. We also have a support section, and that's what we're going to be delving more deeply in today. And we also have the My Vodafone app, self-serve app. I'm not sure if any of you are with Vodafone, but if you are, you've probably logged into that app. Oh, that's and we support that, whatever is useful for your needs.
I've got the free data on the weekend.
Oh, perfect. I'm so glad you enjoyed the free data and you stream non-stop. Fantastic. But yeah, self-service app. So we look after all the content for the app too. All right. So why is support content important? Why are we talking about this tonight, and why should we be putting a focus on it? Because as we know, a lot of people put a focus on the acquisition side, driving those sales, but support is equally important. It's a call deflector. So if a customer can get their answers online, it means they don't need to call. What that means is that if your every call costs, then you can be saving that. It's a monetary value that you can be saving for the organization. What it also means is that if a customer comes to our support content, gets the information they need, but then we also provide other contextual information that they weren't necessarily looking for, but gives them the opportunity to provide that, it means you can then prevent future calls too, because you've already equipped your customer with the information that they may not necessarily need to know at that point. You've given them that information to deflect those future calls. This is the one that I particularly enjoy. Even if a customer does go ahead and call, so we all know there are customers out there that go, oh, look, I've read it online, but I really just want to hear someone say it. Like we know, I think all businesses have those types of customers. Even if the customer then goes ahead and calls, they've read the answer. So what it means is the agent, when the agent then reiterates the exact same answer back to them, they've already heard the answer, which means the call is shorter. So it's much more efficient, and then the call center is much more productive because then the agent can then go on to the next call much shorter. Because I think we all know whenever we call any call centers, sometimes we're on the phone for 20, 30 minutes. But in this, oh, we have a question.
On the last one, I'm trying to hold back. I've already and I already found Lyndon with questions before we even started. Let's do it. On that, have you seen any metrics going from it's a complaint or troubleshooting call to ending up being a sales call, potentially an opportunity for a sales call?
Absolutely. So whenever our customers do call the call center, there is always going to be an element of, let me have a look if you have NBN in your area, and the agent does have that ability to go, let's see what else we can promote to the customer. And it's always got to be obviously beneficial for the customer. There's no point going, oh, do you want mobile broadband if they already have NBN and they've got no need for it? But we definitely do have that ability, and the agents do have the ability to go, what about NBN or anything else relevant to the profile of that particular customer?
And do you track lead scoring with that? someone's been looking at content around NBN, does that come up on the clients, on the agent's information? Or?
You'd have to defer that question to someone that's familiar with the call center. I'm just purely digital content and SEO.
Okay, no.
There definitely is a team that looks after all of that. They would know that answer to that question.
Might have used that in the past, that's why it's like,
yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I've got one question as well around the call deflection rates. Is there some form of reporting on that tells you how much money you're saving? Are you going to get to that?
No. So I'll answer the question now. I have tried to be able to go as a result of increasing traffic to support. Therefore, that has saved this organisation X amount of money. It is very difficult for me to pinpoint it, but what I can do is I just look at trends. So I go, traffic to support has gone up, calls have gone down.
Yeah.
So I go, there is that correlation, but it's very difficult to do it one for one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Increase NPS. So I don't know if you work for I don't know how many agency people are here and how many brands are here, but NPS is very important to Vodafone in the telecommunication industry. So obviously the idea behind this is that support for customers and looking after the customers doesn't end when they sign up. We should be supporting and nurturing them for the entire period that they stay with us. Customers will always have questions. There will always be something that comes up around their product and service. If they can get the answer that they need simply and easily, then their net promoter score will go up. And once their net promoter score goes up, then that will increase the brand loyalty and the customer advocacy. So I always work on the premise that all customers at some point, when they're with Vodafone, will always need help with something, because our services are complex. Some of our international roaming propositions and international calls, these are not simple propositions. Customer wants to go overseas. Well, that's a whole nother world that they now need to learn about that they may not have encountered. So if we are able to provide that information to them, then they'll go, fantastic. Vodafone is there to support me. Vodafone is there to help me at all points of my life cycle. All right, objectives for support content. So as I said, I started off just looking after the acquisition side of the website, and then 1 or 2 years into my time at Vodafone, I took over the support content. When I did that, this is the objective that I set for the organisation and for my team in digital. When customers need assistance, I want to deliver them seamlessly from wherever they choose to search to a relevant, accurate and concise online support article that answers their questions. Let me just break this down a little bit. So as I said, I always work on the premise that customers always need assistance. There's always going to be a time when customers need help. So when that time comes, I want to be able to deliver them frictionlessly, easily, seamlessly, from wherever they then decide to go, how am I going to find this content, to a page, a web page that actually answers that question, that's relevant, accurate, and concise. To me, this is just 101, but it's really important that it's articulated and circulated with the organisation to go, this is what we're trying to achieve. And coming from that content background, I try to stay away from like jargon or buzzwords. I just say it in plain English.
I love it. That's lovely. Customer always need assistance. It's funny because we always forget that. But the moment you speak to someone about whatever you do, whatever you sell, there's always extra questions, extra information that you answer. No, it's really good.
Perfect. All right. So I hear everyone going, well, what did I do? what are the strategies that we did, that we implemented at Vodafone to achieve that objective? All right, let's get into it. This is, at a high level, the structure of the support section at Vodafone. And then what I'll do is I'll delve more deeply into this and show you examples. The support structure of Vodafone is there's a category. Every page falls into the category. There's a topic. So within each category, there's a topic. Within each topic, there's a primary question. For every primary question, we have a primary answer. Then we have a secondary question and additional questions.
Can you give an example of a primary question, secondary question?
You're about to see it in a couple of minutes.
Patience. No, I like patience.
Okay, so let me delve a little bit more deeply into the theory before we get into the examples. If you can hold your... Okay, so categories. So all the support content is broken down into different categories. So a category is based on our products and services we have. So a category is prepaid. We have a category of NBN. So NBN is a product, that is a category. Billing is another category. So we've got 8 or 9 different categories that we break down all the content into. And then what we do from a design perspective is we use iconography to identify each type of category. So a prepaid customer will never hit a billing category because it's not relevant to them. So they will always unmistakably feel comfortable coming back to a prepaid support page because that's the iconography that we use. Within each category, we break it down into topics. So every page is one topic. And this will make more sense when I show the examples. And all questions relating to that topic are on that one page. So in different constructions and different ideas with different companies, you might have every question as an individual page. But what I did is I went, let's break it down into at a topic level, because as I alluded to earlier, one of my objectives with to do support is to then alleviate future calls. So then you put the contextual information around that page, and it's also good SEO because then you put everything in, you condense everything into a topic because customers search at a topic level, not necessarily at that granular question level. But even if you search at that granular question level, that page will still come up.
So you have to make a choice about putting lots together on one page against one. What was that decision-making process for you? Was it purely driven on technically that will work better, or it's easier for somebody to then find the answer to that question?
Yeah, it's the way I did it. It was very, it'll make more sense when I show the examples, but essentially it was around how do I break all of this content down so that it makes sense for the user and it makes sense for them Google. How do I make it easily findable? Because if I were to have all these different questions on different pages, Google isn't necessarily going to know which page to come up as number one in the search results page. So then how are customers supposed to find it from Google? Because Google's going to be confused because it's going to be slightly different variations for each page. And then I just went, well, actually, these topics seem natural to me. If I was looking for this type of information, this is...
Sorry.
Oh, you're right.
You'll like the song.
You're right. So yeah, it's just like all around, if I was looking for this information, how would I want to see it? And then we went live, we started doing this, went live, and it worked.
Have you seen like the pages more for change over time as you're seeing how they're engaging with topics, or like the way that you think the category would be? Have you seen it change quite considerably over time?
Absolutely. Every single day we make dozens of changes to our pages, and it's part of the iteration process. Like I even look at it and I go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that a year ago. Because you see it with fresh eyes and it's that constant iteration and refinement. Like it's never static. It's like we're looking at it and we're getting, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but it's like you talk to the business, but I'll get into more detail in a minute. Oh yeah, so the questions. So then each topic on each page, we've got a primary, secondary, potentially tertiary questions, within also additional questions. The primary question is always going to be the most popular question that customers are asking related to that topic. And this will all make sense when you see it playing it out. All right, From an SEO perspective, the URL structure is incredibly important. All of our support content sits under the root domain. There's a lot of software out there where they can create it, but it sits under a subdomain, and they don't necessarily do it through like a reverse proxy. It just sits like floating it as a subdomain. Obviously, we know that that's not good SEO because it's not using the advantage of being under the root domain. So our support section sits under the root domain. Breaking it down into that structure. So the section is support, so it's /support. Then the category, so /support/category, whatever the name of that category is. And then the topic, so /support/category/topic. So it's all very logical, it all makes sense. Yes.
My technical SEO ears have picked when you talked about reverse proxy.
Yeah.
So are you using a reverse proxy for that is purely on the main CMS, the main domain?
Absolutely.
Did you do the reverse proxy thing before? Have you used reverse proxy? And have you seen a big difference moving from reverse proxy to main domain?
Okay, so at Vodafone, we do use reverse proxy for some pages, but not in the support section, where we've got a third-party vendor that we work with, but that the page is hosted at their end, and we do reverse proxy because we want it under the root domain. The challenge I find, and I'd love to hear if somebody has a solution for me, I just haven't, it hasn't been something that's so important, because a lot of these third-party pages, they're sort of sub-products that they're there. Is the fact that these pages don't sit in the main XML sitemap, and I haven't yet created, the solution would be creating a separate sitemap just for this one page and then linking it through to, we've got like a parents sitemap with children's sitemaps. So that would be the way to do it, but it's additional resources and additional development. So that's the big challenge with reverse proxy.
You're getting pretty excited. I think that is a cheese and wine.
Okay, I'll go away.
Feel free to go on
Thank you. We can chat later. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, the headline message is try to steer away from those software solutions where it doesn't sit under the root domain, or if it does, do it as a reverse proxy, because that would be the best for SEO purposes. All right. How do I determine the topic in questions? I mean, I've alluded to this a little bit already. What are customers calling about? So I regularly talk to the managers in the call center in Hobart. I regularly talk to them and go, what are people calling about? Obviously, they do lots of reports. I look at all the reports to see trends. I think what your question was really interesting, whether the content changes. Every week, we look at the reports and go, are more people calling about this than before? Do I need to focus on that? So it's from the outset, when you're building support content, looking at that general, what are people calling for? But also it's that constant, keep me informed of what's going on so that I can keep up to date.
Does everyone work in the call centers across all categories, or is it split? In the call center, there are certain teams that do focus on different areas. Yes, to focus the answer that kind of.
Is there a split between onshore and offshore for the call centers?
There is.
Do you find that makes any implication as to any of the either like what questions that they take, or is there some devoted to each team?
Yeah. So the way I focus on so different teams do focus on different topics or different products or services. For me, I just look at the end result. To me, it doesn't matter if the call is going across into overseas or Australia. I just want to know what people are actually calling about, because the reports are the same. We just treat it as our customers are calling.
Do you have voice to text, like transcription and analysis?
So this is stretching my outside my remit. I would probably defer that question to people that look after the call center.
Do you use testing instead of using techniques like crowdsourcing?
So say that, Chris. Again.
Testing, do you do user testing after you come up with initial information architecture? For the support content. So when we built out, a couple of 4 years ago, when I overhauled the support section, we did an exercise working with our UX designers, our visual designers to reversion the whole section. So that was the point where we did all that user testing. Now what I do is I just look at the data. So we don't necessarily do sort of CRO testing on the support section, we do CRO on the acquisition section. But now it's just looking at the data and seeing what people are engaging with, and then looking at the wider data around what people are calling about, and also what people are searching for on Google. So obviously I use Google AdWord tool, I use SEMrush to see what people are doing in Google. In an ideal scenario, what people are calling about and what people are searching about should be the same thing. And I also look at what customers are doing through the on-site search tool. So we use Cluedo as our on-site search functionality. So again, in an ideal scenario, customers are calling about something, they should be searching for it in Google, and they should also, in theory, should be searching for it on the website once they hit the site. So I look at all this data, and that then tells me how then I formulate the various topics and the questions. Obviously, we're now in this process of iteration. So if I see new questions coming up, then that prompts me to go either update an existing page or create a new page because it's now a new topic. All right, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's look at some actual examples. Okay, prepaid. So one of our high visited pages, prepaid recharge. So in that structure that we created, the category is prepaid, the topic is prepaid recharge, the primary question is how do I recharge, and then following that structure, the URL is obviously /support/prepaid/recharge. Let's look at the page. There we go. This is the live page. This is what we have on the website. Let me break down each section for you. All right, topic. So as you know, every page has a topic. This topic is recharging your prepaid mobile phone service. Because this is the topic, it's the H1. So from a good SEO perspective, the topic is H1. Primary question is the H2. So we know more customers are asking how to recharge their prepaid service than any other question relating to this particular topic. So that's why that's the headline in terms of a hierarchy of messaging, sort of 101 for content, most important piece of information right at the top of the page. We then have the primary answer to the primary question. Okay, so in this instance, the primary answer to how do I recharge is the best way to recharge is through my Vodafone. So this is where we want our customers to recharge, and that's an education piece for the customer, and that's where we drive them into. We then have the secondary answer to the primary question. So obviously we know that customers can also recharge through other mechanisms. So we then give them those options too. So they can either do it sending a text message or calling the IVR to recharge. Secondary question. So the primary question, secondary question we've got is, can I opt into automatic recharge? So the automatic recharge is a product that we've launched relating to our prepaid products. So then this is another option, and this is the secondary question that we want to promote on our support page. And then we've got obviously the primary answer to the secondary question. Tertiary question, how to pay for it. And then we've broken that down into the accordion so customers can drill down into their preferred mechanism to pay for their recharge. But then at the bottom, we've got the additional information or the additional questions. So if this whole page is a single topic, we've obviously got the headline question that we want, that the majority of customers are asking, but there are also going to be these, what I refer to as these additional questions that maybe more edge case, maybe fewer customers are interested in, but they're still related to the topic. So we just put them as additional information in accordions right at the bottom of the page. So they're still there, but they're just not as important as the other
topics. And then right at the bottom of the page, we've got, again, that search functionality, because our idea is we want to deflect the calls. So customer might have come into this page and gone, oh yeah, that answers my question. Let me go straight into my Vodafone to recharge. Or they might have read the page and go, actually, I've got another question. I want to ask something else. So we don't give them the option to sort of get out of this environment. We keep them circulating within support. So we put the Clue search bar back at the bottom.
Is all of this marked up as well? Like structured data from a technical perspective?
Fantastic question. I'll come to that in about 10 minutes.
Okay, and then one last question is, because some of the headings there are really complex from a language perspective, charging your prepaid mobile service. Did you notice an uplift when Bill was released?
Say again, sorry?
Did you notice an uplift in impressions and traffic when Google released the Bird algorithm for natural language processing?
So these pages are when people are search support content in Google, they always use the brand term.
Yeah. Okay.
So for us, it doesn't really matter as long as we're just focused on the keywords that we know customers are searching for.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit too much recharging your prepaid mobile phone service, but what we do know is that some customers just go recharge Vodafone. We know other customers go recharge prepaid Vodafone. So we've tried to cover off all those variations within an H1, because then they go recharge mobile service. It's to cover all of that. That's why we've got that H1 in that way.
I think pre-bird it would have been a bit harder to find, but post-bird it would be definitely surfacing more often. Yeah.
Potentially, absolutely. All right, let's look at another example. All right, this is the pay your bill page. All right, so again, category, billing. Top bill. Primary question is how to check the bill amount and due date, because everyone's there. What's my bill and when is it due? And then so the URL structure /support/billing/pay. When I say this back, it sounds really obvious because it's just so logical, but that's the reality. If it sounds obvious, then it's simple and it's working. All right, here's the page. There we go. So let's break it down again, following that exact same structure. Topic, H1, paying your bill. That's a big headline topic. Everything on this page is about paying your bill. Primary question, how to check your bill amount and due date. This is what customers want to know. They just want to know how much do I owe and when do I need to pay it by. So it's H2. Primary answer to primary question. So in this case, the best way to check your bill is through my Vodafone. And then we've got the secondary answer. So there's various other ways customers do have to be able to check their bill. Then we've got the secondary question. So once you know how much it is, how do I go ahead and then pay it? And then we've got the various options within tabs to give customers the ability to go, well, actually, I want to set up direct debit or I want to pay it through the IVR. So we've got the primary answer and secondary question. And then we've got tertiary question, other ways to pay. Oops. I didn't realize it was next one. Yeah, so that's that slide.
I know you're saying this is simplistic, it seems obvious, but truly the hardest bit was actually making this happen in a big business. Or was that quite straightforward? Did they kind of go, look, you can have whatever content management system you want. How was that?
And interesting enough, I was actually saying that exact answer before you all arrived. Okay, so my approach is two approaches. They do two things. One is take the business on the journey with you. So rather than going that bulldozer approach is like, I'm here to change the world, that's not me, it's not how I work, and I don't think it's a very good approach. It's far better off going to an organization, and this is what I did, and go, I want to take this organization on the journey with me. So I start off and go, oh look, let me try this. You circulate and you share what you're about to do. You go live with it, and then you show the results. So you build up that trust and that relationship so that the organization, A, understands what you're doing, and B, is then comfortable making those incremental changes. We're going on that journey. The other approach that I've done is if I believe the organization wouldn't be comfortable with as dramatic change as what I thought was necessary, I would just do it and then share the results. So, but I generally like to take people on that journey with me. So it was just a matter of, in this instance, it was sharing all these ideas and building up that trust and confidence to go, yeah, this is the right approach. This is the way to do it. And then it's the regular sharing of results.
And did that all come back to the original objectives of deflecting from the call center? Because I guess you get big buy-in with that, and that's probably why it was first to say, actually, I need X amount for a CMS, because we can say this.
Yeah, well, the good thing is the CMS existed already. So
Okay.
it's just the standard website that like the acquisition, all the pages sit in. So the CMS bit was relatively straightforward because we just, instead of having only acquisition pages sit in the CMS, we'll just build out some more pages in the CMS. But there's just getting to me, just getting that buy-in and then clearly articulate and explain to the organization, this is what we're doing, and then sharing the results. All right, finding support content. So I've taken you through sort of how those pages are laid out. The interesting thing with support is that, I'm sure you've probably come across this if you've worked with any other businesses that you support, is that e-commerce and the acquisition side is all linked through a mega menu, or it can be linked through a mega menu. So customer wants to know, I don't know, I want to get an NBN plan. You go to the mega menu, you click on the link, and you go to the page. Because support there's a couple of hundred pages there, it's not all linked as a navigational tool through a mega menu. So how do we do that, but also then balance off against all the SEO requirements? Our support content then is primarily found through Google, as also primarily found through the on-site search tool. One of my biggest surprises was actually the volume of customers that use Google to find our support content. So if you just go, oh, surely customers, if they want our support content, will just go to the website and then search, but they don't. People are so exactly right.
You always expect the website's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you find a forum that has your answer. Like,
Exactly.
Have you in your webmaster, whatever tool you're using, have you seen many sites, Vodafone.com.au, with the actual question?
Say again.
Maybe there's more advanced users, but I've seen that on clients' websites that have too much content, where the actual search query was site example.com, my specific question, so they could find the actual place to find it. And assume as soon as people use that.
Maybe.
I've seen that frustration of the question coming in on different variations. Cancel my service. That was the one which is like, how do I cancel my service? That was the one support content that you could not find. Pretty much. Like, no, we shouldn't go index that page. Do not index that page.
No, absolutely. So that was a big surprise to me. Customers use Google to find our support content. So that's why obviously optimizing for SEO is incredibly important. What we also do is from where it's relevant, we have then from our acquisition side, we then link across into support. So there's those internal links too. So coming back to that prepaid example, if you were to go how to recharge Vodafone, this is what comes up as the search results page in Google. But more interestingly, this is what we do in on-site search, okay? So this is the on-site search results page that's generated through Cluedo. So obviously down the bottom, this is the search results listing, recharging your prepaid service. What I also then do is reiterate that primary answer in that primary question. So it's easy to recharge your prepaid service for Express Recharge on my Vodafone. So customers are already getting in tune with what we suspect they're asking. But what we also do, thanks to the functionality of Cluedo, is that we also trigger a banner within the search results page related to obviously the keywords that the customer is searching for. In this case, they've searched for how to recharge. The banner then obviously talks to how to recharge your prepaid service. The best way is through my Vodafone. But then what we also do is provide 2 CTA links. One that goes to the support page if they want to read about it, but the other one then takes the customer direct into my Vodafone so they can go ahead and just recharge. So for me, it's not about necessarily driving all customers through support. It's about how do we get customers as quickly to where they need to go as possible. So if they bypass the support page, I think that's fantastic, because all they really want to know is, I just want to recharge, just get me there as quickly as possible. So that's what obviously the banner can do. I can't have those My Vodafone pages indexed in the search results page, because obviously it's all behind a firewall. From an SEO perspective, and I hear everyone going, oh, but if it's all through navigation, and sorry, it's all through search, how do we then have all those internal links so that from a Google perspective, no page is then orphaned? Because obviously that's the other consideration. Has anyone come across any of that? I'm just really curious, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like internal links would be one tool that most SEOs have a full ownership of, in the sense that you say most organizations have the SEO team and the content team.
Yeah.
So in the SEO team, the one thing that no one really gives a lot of care about is the internal linking. And that's typically the things that SEO can control, especially large scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can work with.
It's like point fires, isn't it? It's like, right, put it in the next page.
Well, absolutely.
Link sculpting, sorry,
Yeah.
is it recorded?
It is, so careful.
Link sculpting might be an old technique, but it's a good technique.
It's very good. Yeah, it works well. But I mean, for some of our clients with very large sites, it's very, very effective, and I think underplayed by many SEOs. So that's a good thing for us.
Absolutely. So how do we do it at Vodafone, where we've got all the support content out there, a couple of 100 pages, and yet it's all just found not necessarily through navigation, not necessarily through internal links, although we do have internal links through acquisition page, but how do I get all of those pages? All right, it comes back to the structure that I've created. So as we know, root domain homepage, section of support, and then we have that category page. It's on the category page where I have those links. So this is the prepaid category page. So again, this page isn't actually for customers, but because it's customer facing, I needed to make it look and appear like it's useful for customers, but the actual primary purpose is for Google, so I can have those SEO links. So the way I did this is that obviously we know that we have the 3 most popular pages. So I know that the topic of how to recharge is the #1 thing that customers want. So that's the #1 topic. We then have those 3 pages as the sort of the hero pages. But then what I do is I then follow that same structure on, that we have on the support page, where you've got primary answer and then those additional questions. I then have those additional support links that then just feed down the page. So that from Google, they can go, actually, there are no orphan pages, and it still looks real for customers that happen to land on this page. Yes?
So is this page actually surfacing some search queries at the moment? And if so, what kind of terms are they?
Yeah, prepaid support. So because this is now the category page for prepaid and it's support,
Yeah.
If someone were to Google prepaid support, I imagine this page would come up.
Yeah.
But nobody's doing that. It's much more focused on this, like the service or the issue or the product,
Yeah.
the problem they actually have. But it's still there if customers do want it. So, all right. Getting onto a question that you asked earlier. What else do we do at Vodafone to ensure that we're getting all that traffic from Google? So yes, a lot of the searches for support is around branded terms, but what else can we be doing? What else can you use? Whatever functionality that Google provides that we can do. So FAQ schema, feature snippets, and people also ask. Let me show you some examples of that. All right, this is our Wi-Fi calling support page. And what we've done is we've engineered it and we've loaded up structured data so that we have an FAQ schema that appears on the search results page of Google. So as you see, we've marked up the content. So what is Wi-Fi calling? We've then mirrored that in the structured data so it appears on the search results page. So again, this ties back to that concept of if customers can get the answer from Google, then I support that. I think that's fantastic because my aim is not necessarily to drive all this traffic to the support section. My aim is to give Vodafone customers the answer they need as seamlessly and easily as possible. If the question that the customer wants to know is what is it, and Google can provide that information, then let them just go to Google and let's have a zero click. To me, that's fantastic because that again, it's customers getting the information and that increase that NPS for us and our customers. Call catcher. So again, another one of our support pages. Again, it's been marked up with structured data. So how to manage call catcher. In this instance, the best way to manage call catcher is through my Vodafone. By marking this up with structured data, again, what I've been able to do is send customers direct from the search results page of Google into the app, into my Vodafone. Without this structured data and without this schema, I wouldn't be able to do that because this page is behind the firewall. It's an app. So that's, again, it's been getting customers to where they need to go as quickly as possible. All right, making international calls. So this is some feature snippets. So I just Googled how to call overseas from Australia. We've marked up the page and we've structured the content in a way that Google seems to appreciate because they've rewarded us with featured snippets. And then obviously the content that gets pulled across is this support page and it mirrors exactly the way we've marked it up on the page. Calling UK from Australia, so this is the same support page, but then we've looked, what are customers Googling around being able to call overseas? And so obviously we included then UK, New Zealand, USA, Canada. And then we marked up the content and structured in a way, again, that Google seems to appreciate because it's the feature snippets coming up for us. Volte, voice over LTE. Important service for us. So again, more of that FAQ schema. So what is Volte? And it's all marked up again based on the content of the page. But interestingly, with Volte, we also have the feature snippet. So what is Volte calls? Google's gone, oh, this support page has that answer. So again, feature that allows voice calling over the 4G network using compatible devices. All right, this is a really interesting one. This is people also ask. So this is my recharge example, the prepaid recharge example. So we know that the words recharge and top up are interchangeable. So some customers go, I don't know, how do I top up my service? Others go, how do I recharge my service? Google has identified that because then you also have customers that are Googling, how do I top up my Vodafone prepaid? And they've served the support page in response to that question. I don't think I actually have top up anywhere on that page, but Google's clever enough to go recharge top up, same thing. Then it's the people also ask. All right. Key takeaways. Invest in the research. I mean, it's as obvious as logical, but there's no point just creating content for the sake of creating content. I always listen to what the teams are telling me. I listen to what the teams in the call centers are telling me around what's calling. I look at the data, and that's what the basis of all the content creation is. I don't do anything unless it's actually based in fact and data. Keep it logical. Well, I mean, you've all seen the logic behind the structure of the support content. If it's logical, customers respond positively to things that are rational, sensible, logical, and so does Google. I think this next point will probably come up in every single presentation you ever see on SEO. So it would be remiss of me not to include it. Right, first and foremost for the customer, not Google. So when my team and I, we're creating content, we always go, what does the customer need to see? What does the customer need to know? And then Google will reward you because it's based on customer first. All right, embrace iteration and learn from your mistakes. So I don't always get it right. We don't always get it right. We try something, it doesn't work. You go, well, what went wrong? Let me try something else. But it's a matter of embracing that iteration and that test and learn approach so that in the end, you go, oh, actually, that's what I needed to do. And to me, personally, that's what makes working in digital really exciting because none of us have all the answers. Let's just use the functionality and let's use digital in the way that we can and just see what happens especially with optimization, especially with SEO and working with the algorithms of Google. And because that's the challenge. If we all knew what to do, we could all just go home tomorrow, but we can't. There's so much out of our hands. But yeah, we can use that, embrace that sort of iteration and constant learning. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I've provided something in there that you can learn and take back to your businesses and your clients.
You know you get questions. Over to you, Brandon.
I think I just might first make a statement of how valuable, as I said to you, Lyndon, I saw that topic coming out, I was like, yes, this is really, really something different, valuable, because one of the key challenges of SEO is when it's often in the trenches. Talk about, oh yeah, but Google is doing that thing with the algorithms, and we're not having any visibility to the senior executives because often what we talk about has nothing connected with the actual business. And when you start talking about, I'm here to use the content we have and reduce the number of calls, then suddenly the COO and the CFO is going to go, yes, tell me now, please help me. How are you going to do that? And that makes a big difference. I think that the going beyond the tactical KPIs, going beyond it's all about the acquisition. It's all about bringing more traffic, bringing more business.
Yeah. You're the first SEO I've ever heard say that you actually don't mind the zero. That's the mindset behind it makes perfect sense because you are trying to help the customer, but we're not always thinking about we're always thinking about traffic. So yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And particularly if your KPI is traffic, then that zero click is a nightmare.
Yes. So yeah, and thankfully and luckily I work for Vodafone and I'm within the UX team and a UX copywriter. So for me, it would be remiss of me not to always put what the customer is appropriate or useful for the customer first. And just go, actually, this is just better. It's a better experience. If the customer can get the answer from the search results page, why do they need to come to a website? They don't. Why create that additional click for the customer? They don't need to.
I'm going to give you a little heads up here. If you went to Google with that angle, they will put you on the Google thing, blog, I reckon, with that as a case study.
Go and see if we can
actively avoid Google's own website for finding an answer to do Google, say like in AdWords. You always look for somebody who's blogged about it and actually tell you what's going on.
Never at face value or anything. Yeah, that's what it is.
I have a question. Oh, surprise. At what point? So you've talked about iterations and you bring the organization and journey. Obviously, as you expand your activity, you want your team to be able to support the point. What point did you really start having conversations around? I am reducing the amount of calls by creating more content, because you're saying it was very difficult. It's very difficult to go. I created that piece of content. There's X less calls. When do you start having those conversations? Because someone in the finance department will go, okay, how much?
Yeah, from day one.
From day one.
From day one, because to me, I'm very logical. To me, I go, well, actually, if you can get quality traffic, if you can get your customers onto a support content that answers their question, surely logic says they are not going to call. So that's the logic behind it. So I say I say to the business, that's the logic. Now let's see what happens in practice and to see then what happens. And then it's all setting up what you then promise or the theory, then you deploy it and then see what the results deliver.
And it's something they value. They value having less calls, right? That's incredibly valuable.
Yes, especially when yes, that's right. Yeah, it's just a tangible thing. As a result of you getting traffic from Google, this is now what's going to happen to the business.
Were you able to quantify the results?
Quantify that or validate that? How early have your team leads have asked you to do that, and how did you sort of organize that answer, since you said it was difficult?
Yeah, you just be honest. You just be honest and transparent. You know, and even to this day, it's very, very difficult for me to go, as a result of this increase in traffic, this is the amount of calls that have reduced. I can't do that. I just look at the trends. I just go, look, traffic is going up, surely, and then you look at the call volumes and you go, there must be some correlation. There has to be.
And also, if it's that you've got that many, people going to the site tools, or that many feature snippets have been shown, it's a pretty logical jump, isn't it, to go, they haven't had to call. Or if they did call, they called for a short amount of time. So you don't have to, I wouldn't have thought you had to take it much further than that.
That's right, and I haven't.
Would they be marking down calls for, like you say, like how many times we've got, how do I recharge on a phone call compared like back then to now? Have you looked at any of that?
Absolutely. So within the call reports, we get trends and we see, we've got 42% of calls from this topic. Last quarter or last period, it was, 52% of calls on this topic. So we do look at the trends and different topics too.
It's really tempting on the call wait to say
Well, if you are looking for an answer, our website contains a lot of information. How wonderful support there.
If you can find it easily, then you will get it back.
Very good. Any more questions?
Yeah. So how many support pages do you have to look at? And how often do you have to update?
Yeah. So there's a couple hundred support pages on the Vodafone website. They need to get updated for two reasons. One is there's a product or service change. So we do a refresh or something changes, then we update the support content. We also update it as part of optimization. So we go, we look at the content and go, actually, we could phrase this better, we could redo the content, we could restructure it, and we just do it as part of optimization. So our support content gets updated multiple times a day.
How do you say a service change or changing technology, things like that, voice over data? How do you have behind the scenes tags for each snippet of content? Do you have related to that? How do you do that?
Do you want to give me a bit more?
So it's more around. So you've got a page around sort of how you're using, for example, the amount of data that you can pass through your network or the throttling, things like that.
Sure.
That information may appear in multiple support pages.
Yeah.
How then, behind the scenes, do you manage that information being updated across all your pages? Do you have specific tags?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have all of our support content sits in copy decks. So from the back end, what we've got is, how I've talked about all those different categories. Each category has its own copy deck. So for example, in your example of like throttling, it's really easy just to go into a Word document and go Control F.
So it is just to find it. Okay.
Yes, yes, it's as simple as that. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't need to be. It's like we got mirror copy decks for everything that's online. So it's a standard audit process. So whenever any changes, we either do end-to-end journey analysis or we just do an audit of where that particular product or service is mentioned. And then we just work through all those touch points. But the good thing is that because each page is one topic and we don't have that many pages, it's pretty straightforward to make change if the organization does change a product or service because of that topic approach. So we don't have thousands of different pages, each with different questions.
The reason I ask is I face that problem with financial institutions.
Yeah.
Interest rate and credit card change. Because you got RBA change tomorrow, everything needs to change. Also, within the bank passes on the rate rise, and that becomes entertaining to find every piece of information to get in PDFs because that was
And the other, sorry. I was just going to share the other thing I do, if it's not a copy deck, I do, I don't know if anyone else uses this, you're going to enjoy this, site:/Vodafone.com.au and then quotation mark, whatever phrase is.
How do I cancel my contract?
Yes.
That is.
Yeah, and then all the pages where that phrase is on. Obviously that only works for index pages and we've also got no fun index pages out there, but that's another way that we can really quickly and easily find those pages.
On that topic that Francis mentioned, maybe you can't disclose this, but is there any support pages or sections that you've ever been encouraged to avoid?
Dark designs.
So the conversation we have with the business, and it's a very valuable question because it's a normal question. Conversation we have with the business is what can I say and what can we make publicly available and what can't I make publicly available? So obviously there is stuff that we don't make publicly available. But that's more stuff that when the customer does call, there's information that then the agent can then talk through with the customer. So obviously there's stuff that we can share publicly and there's stuff that we can't.
Yeah. So just one last follow-up on that. So I guess there's a team approach here where as a customer support team, there is someone who says, right, for this specific query or specific question, we prefer voice-to-voice, I think it's the term they use, to make sure that we are maximising our time with that customer and trying to get them to do the thing that we want them to do. Our objective.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is always going to be, every business I'm sure is going to have something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What was the timeframe that you started to get this up and going?
Oh, say that again, sorry?
What was the initial timeframe to get the original platform up? So before the database changes, right? So just from the time you were taking a look at where all the questions coming in, doing the care, submitting pages,
Yeah.
content.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it was a process, so there was a big process of re-platforming and rewriting all the support content. From sort of kick-off to go live, it was about 6 months while we went through everything as a sort of waterfall delivery model to go, actually, we need to overhaul what we currently have to be able to then set up the appropriate foundations to then be able to optimize and move forward.
And you go live with that 100% or was it?
It was a cutover.
Awesome, we grilled you.
It's a pleasure.
No, well, thank you very much for taking us through that. I think for me that's one of the most interesting presentations that we've had because it's from a very different perspective than we're used to. It's always about customer acquisition, and this fulfills a very different purpose. So thank you very much.
Thank you.